Tonight, our attention is on sports. Well, very uncommon, isn't it? Yeah, but it's policy and governance related. And, well, when politicians are asked or saddled with the responsibility of doing stuff on behalf of Nigeria, there is a sense that there is a need for accountability, transparency, and also telling the Nigerian people, giving account, especially when money is also involved, and also the name of the country is also involved. They need to give an account on what they've done. So, focusing on Nigeria's recent outing at the Paris Olympics. Call it an outing of shame, and you might be right. Team Nigeria returned with no single medal. Disgracefully, Nigeria returned without a medal, a replica of the woeful outing 12 years ago in London. Among others, the 84 Nigerian representatives performed woefully in athletics, basketball, boxing, table tennis, wrestling, and football. It is a sobering moment for the so-called giant of Africa. Well, I was particularly glad when I saw Nigerian colors on the basketball pitch, and kudos to several of those girls who broke records. The very first African team that will even be beating the nation like Australia, beating Canada, and they stood head-to-head, chest-to-chest with the American team. You know how feisty and how strong and formidable the American team. They fought them on that pitch, and they dropped their sweat there to show that they were really of Nigerian blood and bearing Nigerian name and representing Nigeria. But then, unfortunately, that was how far they could go. And the many, many Nigerians that represented the nation across every other sporting event that took place in Paris, in France. Well, tonight, we're going to be learning some lessons as a nation. And wherever the blame is, whoever gets the blame tonight, let us also name to shame and learn a lesson so that we can move forward. And tonight, the man who is in charge of all of those, who we should be asking the question, is with us. The Minister of Sports Development, Senator John Owaneno, has apologized for Team Nigeria's dismal performance during the 2024 Paris Olympics, when the country did not secure any medals. The minister said that he accepted the performance and that it should have been a lot better, and that it obviously fell short of the objectives, expectations, and hopes of Nigerians. The Minister, Senator John Owaneno, is my guest tonight on the program. And thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Shewan.
How sad is it for Nigeria that we went to that Olympics, went to Germany, had some training in Cameroon, some tests there, and some competition, but all we could get is no medal?
Shewan, very sad. Really sad.
Do you take responsibility?
I mean, my letter has already said a lot of that. I mean, it was totally unexpected, you know. And as a country, I mean, I understand the sadness and the anger. I mean, for people who know me from my native Cross River, they will imagine how I feel, because I always like to win, and I work hard to win. It's very sad.
But you didn't win this time around.
I didn't win this time, unfortunately.
What caused it?
Oh, well, I mean, it's not that I didn't work hard. I mean, I did everything I should do.
And you didn't see this coming?
I didn't see this coming at all.
It's a failure that you never envisaged.
I didn't envisage. Let me tell you how.
There are experts who will say, Minister, you are wrong. And there are signals. You cannot go to the largest, the biggest sporting event in the world, and you say you didn't expect it. The failure, a lot of people say, had long. Look at the giants of Africa. Some of the athletes, the Ophelis of this world, the Amusons of this world, our wrestlers, our weightlifters, who were the shocker to the world. They went there and they came back like dwarfs, not like the giants that they used to be.
It is those same people that you have mentioned, that you have listed, those giants of ours that went to the African Games and we came second. Those same giants of ours that were presented at the Olympics. And that's why I've told you, maybe not that we're going to overwhelm the world, but I didn't expect at all that we'll come back from the Paris Olympics without one medal.
What were you expecting? What did you plan? What did you think that we were going to? What was your expectation? How many medals do you think that we're going to get?
Now let me tell you what it is, and maybe this brings me to the structure of sports management and administration in our country. I mean, I had sessions with the sporting federations. As Minister of Sports Development, you do not directly, right, train the athletes. You do not directly monitor them. I mean, these are the responsibilities of the different sporting federations. You get appointed as Minister of Sports Development, unlike perhaps some other ministers and some other ministries. You have agencies and, all of that, and you can decide in terms of what you want to achieve for that sector or not. And imagine, for example, that these people are not good enough. You want to recommend some changes and all of that. The Minister of Sports Development hasn't such luxury because you get appointed and you have leaderships of the different sporting federations, close to about 40, elected in their congresses. They have the immediate and direct responsibility of running their affairs in such sports.
So you are limited.
So, and I had sessions with them.
Are you limited in your capacity to be able to control the nitty-gritty of what they do?
Of course, the Minister of Sports Development in Nigeria is that limited. And for example, I had sessions, technical sessions, with, the different Olympic sports that were qualified, 12 of them. And we got briefings, and that is the only way you can get involved. And you ask questions, and briefing after briefing, I will sit there, and I sat there, and I ask, okay, President of AFN, Athletics Federation of Nigeria, you've said this, you've said this. What is your medals projection? What's the basis of that projection? Right? And you go through, right? As ministers, that's what you do. So your expectations become governed by what? What the different federation presidents and leaderships have told you and the kinds of things they've been able to prove. I followed the athletics people to Douala when they went for the African Championships and all of that. And I think that reasonably, okay, in 2020, Olympics, we won 2 medals. 1 bronze in long jump, essay, and 1 silver in wrestling, Blessing Burududu.
Yeah.
And both of these were in this concluded Olympics. So if, for example, 4 years ago, they got bronze, they got silver, and you're making projections, you are not wrong to project that you will expect that they'll do better. So when the federations come and they brief you about all of that, that becomes the basis upon which you look forward to what. And again, you have a responsibility. Okay, the Minister of Sports Development, Ministry of Sports, has the direct responsibility of prosecuting these games. So at the end of the day, it is the federations that pick and select the athletes that they think are competitive enough for any game. Certain times as minister, when my attention has been called to something that has happened and I want to get involved, the federations are very strong in their defense of what decisions that they have made. And that's why a lot of the times, I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that within sports, there's a word like interference. Because these federations guard what they do and their different sporting federations so jealously that any attempt that Benin minister to reach out and things like it is considered as interference. So basically, what is my responsibility? To prosecute the games, international competitions and all that. And in terms of that, what I've tried to do, and I've had AFCON, I've had African Games, I've had the Olympics, I've avoided in my leadership most of the pitfalls that have been, bedeviled our sporting competition engagements internationally for the last several years. So that's what it is.
Yeah, London, abysmal, no matter. Rio won bronze in the football game. The one that followed, 3. Then two rather. Then this one, nothing. Minister, you got 12 billion naira. The last Olympics got less than 2 billion to prosecute our Olympics. You got way 12 billion divided by 2. You got way in terms of percentage. This is awful lot, but it looks like a wasted money. 12 billion in a moment when Nigeria does not have money. Do you take responsibility that Nigeria failed at that Olympics? Did you take responsibility?
There's nothing I will say here that will seem to defend the fact that Nigeria didn't have a medal. But I owe Nigerians explanations, and I owe Nigerians. I need to be able to explain.
Responsibility?
I've answered that at the first instance, and I told you that I made a communication out. I didn't wait for anybody to want to blame me. I issued a statement, a public apology.
Well, Nigerians are watching, and did you take responsibility?
Yes. Well, because I'm Minister of Sports Development,
people will say in other crimes, Minister, you will not even wait. You will have resigned your position because of this abysmal failure.
You know why this climb is different?
Nigeria was disgraced.
You know why this climb is different? Yeah. 2 things. You've talked about 12 billion. I need to also explain the fact that 12 billion wasn't for Olympics, was for Olympics and Paralympics. Paralympics starts 28th of August to the 8th of September. So the 12 billion is not just for the Olympics.
How much
the
is
second,
specifically for the Olympics?
For Olympics, about 8.something billion. And then for Paralympics, about 3.something billion.
Coming from less than 2 billion.
But let me say this.
That's an awful lot.
Sheun, imagine what that money was, 2 billion you mentioned, was 4 years ago. The Olympics and sporting activities are international matters. And they are, you talk about them in terms of the dollar equivalent. I'm not saying 12 billion is not a huge sum, but I'm also calling attention to the fact that 12 billion in 2024 and 2 billion in 2020. You make the arithmetics. You imagine the journey of the Nigerian naira.
So it was insufficient.
Well, I'm not going to say it was insufficient because we did a budget which amounted to that and it was provided for. In terms of the
Did you get exactly what you wanted?
Yes, I did.
That's what you budgeted for?
That's what we budgeted for, yes.
And you got it?
Yes.
So,
but you know what?
Yeah.
But you know what? In the last couple of months, even before the Olympics, I've been very vocal in talking about the fact that as a country, what I find us doing in sports is that we fund competitions. We do not fund the training and the preparations for the competitions.
How long do you think is right to prepare for an Olympics?
Within the sector, what I find and what I hear is that at least 4 years. There are people who have told you that 4 years is not even enough. It's only 4 years. I became minister August of last year. I met nothing on ground about the Olympics. It had to take me my initiative to even summon the National Olympic Committee to a meeting to find out from them. Unlike me and my permanent secretary that are new, the NOC has been there for many years. And the NOC is aware that Olympics, you begin to plan for the next one after this particular one has ended. What has been
will heads roll because of this abysmal performance? Because if your principal, the president, is not firing you, you have not fired yourself, you are not firing anybody, it does look like the sporting community is taking the nation for granted. This government is taking the nation for granted. Because not only does money is being on the line here, we're talking about the integrity of the nation. The name of the nation has been rubbished.
At every point in time, I'm going to tell you that I feel very sad about it. But if you talk about firing people, at the Olympics, there are a few trials I tried to make sure there wasn't any bad or negative exposure, the cause of it. It came, the Ophili matter came. The matter about what again? The fact that Team Nigeria, the opening, was appearing in how many, costumes at the same time and all of that. All of those things I'm going to
pick one after
all of those things.
Within the next one.
All of those things I'm going to engage. I'm going to interrogate them. You don't fire unless you interrogate. And I've already stated my determination that I'm not going to allow things lie low. I'm going to take them up one by one.
So you are promising that heads will roll?
Well, if that's what it's going to take. If my findings and my interrogations get to that point in which people become liable, people become responsible for the kind of negative publicity that we had at the Olympics, why not?
Honorable Minister, can you confidently say Team Nigeria had the right preparation for the Olympics?
I can't say so.
So we were not properly prepared?
I cannot say so.
So we were not properly prepared?
We were more properly prepared for the competition itself than the preparation for the Olympics. All we did as Team Nigeria was to try as much as we did in the different sporting whatever to qualify for the Olympics, because the qualification is not automatic. So we spent more effort qualifying and trying to get outlets to qualify for the Olympics. Whereas, for example, some other countries had qualified their athletes more than a year ago, who were still qualifying even a month to the Olympics. So that's what we spent our time doing.
It was a knee jack.
Well, you call it so.
And there are those who will say Cameroon, you went for 2 weeks in Germany for the preparations, damn too late in the day. But if you look at it, you said you were sad about it. Do you think that you've wasted public funds on this?
In terms of measuring whether we won medals or not and we didn't win, you'll be correct to say, but let me tell you what it is. Maybe if, for example, I found out that because of our lack of preparation, let us not go for this Olympics, you'd have also imagined what the backlash would have been. But I think that before now, and again, I make no excuse, I'm not saying this because I want to defend the very abysmal performance, is that even participating in the Olympics and in some of the sports, although we didn't get medals, there's a very thin line that separates those who won and those who lost. You've mentioned basketball. Talk about the fact that, in long jump for the first time, we got about 3 Nigerians also competing. I mean, we had, and you can, some of the sports were returning to the Olympics for the first time. We made some gains, and I'm trying to put together a report that tries to highlight that. So I'm not going to agree with you entirely and totally that we wasted public funds, only to the extent that because we didn't win a medal, it's as bad as that.
Minister, I mean, in terms of the fact that, well, if that looked like we went and made an appearance, your explanation, but the fact that we came home, we did not go there not to win medals. We went there and prosecuted that event because we wanted to win medals. But let's go into some nitty-gritty. Now, let's talk about the favor of Philly matter. She prepared for 4 years to run in the sprint. She qualified for the 100-meter event and was ready to compete, Minister. Days to the event, she discovered she wasn't registered. It's so heartbreaking for the young girl who has worked so hard. You could see it on her face. It's crying and all what have you. You, as the Minister of Sport Development, should we hold you accountable or responsible since you have not told Nigerians who did that wicked act?
Okay, as Sports Minister, you won't hold me responsible for what happened, as regrettable as it was. If you watched, what was playing out, immediately that news broke out, I responded immediately because it is not the responsibility of the Minister of Sports Development to register athletes. It's between the federation in that particular sport and NOC.
But you are the administrator.
In fact, at the Olympics, the sports minister almost has no recognition whatsoever. The person IOC, the International Olympic Committee, recognizes is the president of a country's NOC. Even to get privileges in terms of rights, in terms of entrances to venues and all that, it is the president of NOC that has to make that happen for you or not. As the administrator and minister, I immediately questioned it. I questioned AFN, I questioned NOC, and I said whatever they needed to do to make sure her name was restored for that race, it should be done. When it wasn't done regrettably, I still issued another statement and I said, just so we don't distract our concentration at the Olympics, after the Olympics, we're going to interrogate this and find out where the responsibility laid. That is what I should do.
So we've not found out right now.
I mean, we just returned from the Olympics. Why not? We're going to find out, yes.
Yeah.
We're going to find out.
That was despicable.
We're going to find
and
out.
that's heart-wrenching. For someone who is prepared for 4 years, only to find out that a fault or not of ours, she was not able to participate in the event that she's been preparing for. This is we pray she has opportunity in future to participate. What if she's never, she is not able to participate again in an Olympics? What happens? But the question is that there are those who will say, Minister, cut the chaser and you were the president of Nigeria, represent the flag, carry as the administrator. And a lot of people will think that as the administrator, you need to look into those details. And that's why a lot of people are mentioning your names and blaming you.
No, you won't be able to look at those details. You will not be able to.
Why not?
Because the communication that goes on doesn't involve you. It involves those
federations.
You were left
out.
It involves those federations. That is the way the system is structured.
The bureaucracy and that politics, don't you think that it needs to be broken?
It's not about the bureaucracy. It's about the fact that you don't even have recognition at the Olympics. At the International Olympic Committee.
But the money is coming through your office to all of these.
Yes, you should have. Yes, you get it funded, but you don't have a say. You don't have a role.
Do you know, Minister? It's so embarrassing that, and confirm to us whether or not this is true, some of the parents and some of the family members complained that they were supposed to get tickets to watch their words and their children or their family member. It was so bad that some of them were even denied tickets into those games. Are you aware?
Well, I don't know much about that. All I can say is that for the games and for the sports that we could get tickets for people to watch, we did.
I'm talking about corruption, about tickets alone. Corruption of how officials of the organization from the Nigerian end were even racketeering on tickets that were supposed to belong to family members, parents. Family members of some of the athletes were complaining. Those who traveled down.
Sure, my attention hasn't been called to this, but if it's this kind of serious matter, I'm available and I'm ready to get all the reports about all of this, and I'm willing.
So you are promising Nigerians that the case of favor of Philly, you are going to get to
every matter that has been a problem in this Olympics, the Ministry of Sports Development under my watch will thoroughly look at, will not ignore. We're going to deal with it head on.
As the ministry apologized officially to Favor?
The ministry apologizing to Favor. As Minister of Sports Development in Paris, I was regularly in touch with Favor at every step of the way. At every step of the way. And that's the kind of approach I've adopted since becoming Minister of Sports Development.
A lot of things went wrong, Minister.
I relate with the athletes directly.
Take, for example, cameras caught one of our athletes crying. What happens to the handlers?
Why was the athlete crying?
No, we should be asking. We were not there on the ground. We were watching on TV.
Who was the athlete that was crying?
You didn't see
Favor.
it, Minister. Yes, Favor, yeah.
And I questioned it. And the president of the NOC told me, at that corridor where she was crying, where after every event, the athletes have to pass through, the only people that can be there are accredited journalists. And I questioned the president of NOC. A certain number of journalists were accredited. What happened? And he sent me a photo that indicated the fact a Nigerian journalist was on hand when she was doing so.
It was so embarrassing to see her.
A lot of the things, for example, that have become as bad as they are, it's not because there haven't been explanations that have been made. It's about the fact that, well, in spite of those explanations, I mean, people still run with them and all that.
I mean, those explanations are not tenable. I mean, they make
I've just explained something to you now.
They make Nigeria look bad.
Nobody had control over Favor crying or not. All I'm telling you is that at that point that happened, the president of NOC defended the fact that there was a Nigerian journalist at that point as well, consoling her. And that's the most...
Minister, can you clarify the borrowed bicycle matter? That's another one that the athlete had to go online on social media to be able to express our view. Did Nigeria really borrow bicycle from for Nigeria to compete at the Olympics? Is that what happened?
Again, you're going to find out that a lot of the explanations that I'm going to make in this program are explanations that I get details from the different federations. Again, underscoring the point that I made at the beginning about the fact that those who run these sports and these are the various presidents and the various leaderships of the federations. But having said so, again, in terms of my proactiveness, there is none of these that I found that I didn't immediately swing into action. I immediately called the president of the Cycling Federation to find out from him what happened. And the details, of course, I already tried to explain. What are those details? That before Nigeria left, Team Nigeria left for Paris, that Nigeria qualified for just one race in cycling. And the ministry made provision for every of the sporting federation in terms of their competition equipment. In this case, for cycling, it's going to be what? The cycling that is going to be required for that competition. When they arrived in Paris, the attention was called by the international body to say that a country had been disqualified and 2 more races were now awarded to Nigeria. At that point, those races required what? A particular equipment to compete. An equipment, a bike, for example, that after paying and ordering, you need to wait for about 2 months. We're already at the Olympics. What the Federation did was to liaise with SAS School in Spain and in partnership with a German company to be able to get the bike that she used to compete. That's exactly what happened. It was not a failure in terms of the inability of the ministry to provide the equipment. It was done for the race and the only race that cycling qualified for until this came up while the team was already in Paris.
Fait accompli. It looks like it.
Looks like what?
Like a fait accompli.
I made some explanations to you, Seun.
No, I'm saying that what you have explained looked like there was nothing you could do at that moment because she was already at that event.
At that event, I mean, so the most you could do to get her to compete was to get into the kinds of partnerships.
So a German athlete,
a German, has Spanish school, a German company in liaison with this federation, the in charge of cycling, had to do all that to be able to get her. When I called the president himself was embarrassed that SA had gone public with what she posted. But if you look at what she posted, 2 things. First, there was a misunderstanding of her post. Secondly, she didn't also state the proper context in which that took place. And that gave rise to a lot of the things that you now heard. But I've explained to you, what I've explained is actually what happened. Already at the Olympics, 2 more races were awarded that required some particular approved bikes for which the country couldn't have. Even if we paid money that day, we wait till after the Olympics to get the bike. And what happened was to now liaise with her school in Spain, because this is a girl that the federation even took permission to allow her to continue her training in Spain. So she wasn't even part of the German, camp that we had actually established. So all of this came in handy at the point that this came up.
Let's take a breather, Minister. There's so much more to listen. But a lot of Nigerians, and for the first time, getting an up-close explanation about what happened. And you need to see how Nigerians were cheering these people on. And no matter what happened at that Olympics, there's something that is at the core of all of this, is the fact that Nigerians are actually very patriotic people. Nigerians love their country. Nigerians love their own athletes, and they stood by them.
Absolutely.
And I wish that
we
did better. Yes, it's only in sport, and that's why a lot of Nigerians are emotional.
The reactions are more emotional, and now you don't blame them. I mean,
but we take a break
at a point like this.
We take a break, Minister. When we come back, so much more that we need to talk about. If we need to uproot, dismantle, and start all over again to get ourselves back. I mean, it's not Nigeria that got gold in the Olympics some times ago. Yeah, we can do it. But we need to learn, let's say, so that in the next few years, when we go back, when we go to the United States for the next Olympics, we might do better and fly the green flag higher and prouder. We take a break, everyone. We'll be right back after that. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. The Paris Olympics get our attention, and the Minister of Sports Development, Senator John Iwalona, has been speaking with us, and we're getting some explanation as to what really happened, the nitty-gritty of the issues that bedeviled that outing and causing Nigeria to replicate the London Olympics yet again, where we had no medals. And interestingly, Nigerians make fun and make jest of so many things. They replicated the kind of medals that Nigeria got, and I mean, that wasn't funny at all. But Minister, you spoken about how almost incapacitated administratively the ministry is in the eyes of the IOC, in the eyes of the LOC, in the eyes of the Federation, that almost will not take cognizance of the ministry's role in all of these, and you know, the laws that guide and the rules that guide some of these federations. But the question is that, do you have power to sack or discipline any erring head of federation?
I don't have any such powers.
So why are you minister then?
I don't have any such powers. I mean, in answer to one of your questions, I told you that, and that question brought me to the issue of sports management and administration in Nigeria.
And this is not only Nigeria.
I mean, is
it?
I'm unable, for example, to properly appreciate what happens in other climes. But I tell you what, I've already stated an intention, an indication about the fact that we need to reform our federations. I've stated that intention. These federations, the leaderships are elected in congresses and they hold office for 4 years. Those 4 years are supposed to coincide with the 4-year Olympic cycle, except that, you know, I now find out that for almost all of them, they took office months after the last Olympics, and therefore their tenure is going to be until some months, in the future. But what I can say, for example, is that, like I try to characterize, right? And I give an example. Maybe my colleague who is Minister of Aviation, becomes minister and looks at the parastatals and agencies and finds people that will not contribute enough to the achievement of what goal he thinks he wants to achieve, and he works towards what their replacement and all of that. The Minister of Sports Development hasn't such luxury. He doesn't have.
So if that is what operates, why do we then have Ministry of Sport? Because
the ministry and the minister would normally take charge of the funding of all international sporting competitions.
So the question is,
what you are given is the athletes.
There are those who are holding the nation to ransom. Unfortunately, your office is limited in powers to be able to prosecute, discipline such persons.
Let me tell you. A few days ago, I was talking to one of the presidents. And he told me, because I told him that, look, and then I've thought loud about all of this. And I've had to ask people that both in the ministry, the leadership of the federations, that this is not their first Olympics. For a lot of them, is their second, is their third, is their fourth. This president told me this was his fourth Olympics. And I said, I didn't understand how they continue to feel. Because we may not have had a medal in these Olympics, but it will not be the first time in which we'll be underperforming in terms of the expectations of Nigerians. You know, so you find out that the leaderships of these federations, you know, there are various constitutions that guide how they operate. And it's interesting because whatever has become of their constitutions that have been adopted by their international bodies are what they have recommended to those international bodies. And I've had cause to also question, I provide the funding through government, right? Government provides the funding, and you say there's nothing that can happen, that can be done. You know, so it's an ongoing conversation.
So they are operating as though they are a nation within a nation.
Yeah, well,
because it looks to me that they have some powers that largely uncontrollable by the powers and authority that are supposed to be to administer them, but unfortunately those powers cannot, because they have the, and I've seen what has happened in Football Federation, for example, that they will say interference, and before you know it, FIFA,
there's interference in every sport.
Will clamp down.
There's such talk in every sport.
So we need to break things down and start all over again, don't you think?
Well,
because this nation cannot run like this any longer.
Let me tell you what it is. And this without prejudice to some of the federation presidents that I've found who have demonstrated outstanding leadership. But what I can say, for example, is that for a lot of them, we need to get to a point in which you have people who have passion for the sport. People who can actually draw private sector involvement and funding. People who are not just going to use the platform of federation leadership to their own advantages. Those are the kinds of people we need to encourage to assume leadership positions of these federations.
Minister.
And the only way you can achieve this is looking at what? What do their constitutions say? Ahead of their elections, what can the ministry and government do? And that's one of the things that makes me glad about the ongoing conversation. It may be as unfortunate as it is, people have expressed how bad they feel. And I agree and I appreciate. But I'm also glad that these discussions are going on now. And I need these discussions to continue. Let it not just be limited to the reaction because we didn't get a medal. Let it go further in terms of what? Finding out which of those federations is holding the country to ransom. When the ministry starts its move to want to reform, which of those federations wants to become an obstacle to that reform?
Let's help you, Minister.
Yes.
We know, and one might be angry or emotional as a people, as a nation. And if you see the anger in me tonight, I'm actually carrying the burden of the nation to you.
That's right.
Yeah, because a lot of people are upset. A lot of us have covered sports before.
And they have good reason to be upset.
I've played some level of sport. And the anger is that we can do better. And I want to challenge you've been in the National Assembly. Let's help you, Senator. We as the media will help to put almost all of these federation under the spotlight. And I want to challenge the National Assembly, the leadership of the National Assembly, wherever you may be watching, the Senate, the House of Reps. Can we call this federation to account? Open, what do you call it in the National Assembly?
Public hearing.
Let all of them give account. This is the money that belongs to the nation. This is our country. We cannot have some few people holding us to ransom. Minister, let's go to some details. Athletes are claiming that they sponsor themselves. They claim that even their own trainings were sponsored by themselves. Even their kids, some of them claim that they sponsor themselves. How did this happen?
Well, I don't think I will understand or appreciate when athletes say even their kids, they did that. Let me tell you. And that has brought us to the region of the prosecution of the games. Because after the federations do what they do and present the athletes, the ministry takes over in terms of sponsorship, in terms of all of that. One of the things that I brought in as sports development minister is trying to establish confidence and trust and transparency. I've tried to achieve that. For the first time, we went to an Olympics and came back. A lot of the allowances, almost all, were paid even in advance.
So now, there's nobody that is being, no athlete
that is being owed a kobo out of this Olympics.
100% paid.
They were all paid. They were all paid. And they were paid, they were paid in advance in most of the cases.
Even before you went to Germany?
Even before they went for the Olympics proper, all the allowances for the Olympics were paid ahead. No, there's no athlete that is owed a kobo out of this last Olympics. But let me tell you, when they talk about paying for their training, training allowances and all of that, again, it now brings us to that same issue about how well do we prepare for each of these events. Now, the ministry, the way it's structured, and again, one of the fine points of this discussion is that it brings, I mean, at the beginning of this program, you had said it was unusual, making sports. I mean, so I'm glad at the center stage that discussions on sports are now going. Okay, when we give foreign training grants to foreign athletes, and this way we provided. When I went to the Games Village in Paris, one of the most vexed issues that was thrown up was the issue about foreign training grants. And I can tell you on good authority that all of that was paid. Even when they made a case about the fact that they needed more money, I didn't make an immediate commitment. I told them that if there's something that we can do, we will do. For the first time, even the local athletes, even though I now hear that there are complaints about the fact that they were paid a certain amount, whereas the foreign companies were paid a certain amount. But for the first time in recent times, local athletes were also paid training grants. It has not taken place.
Some of them are saying they're being intimidated, that they're not allowed to speak to the media, they're not allowed to.
But they are speaking.
But you have said
the matters about Ophelia, about AC and all that. I do not athletes. They are speaking.
Well, let's talk about the issue of doping. The lightweight boxer Cynthia Ogunshemilore tested positive for a banned substance and did not compete at the Olympics. Does this validate what WADA says, that's the World Anti-Doping Agency is claiming that Nigeria isn't doing enough to address the issue of doping?
Well, yes and no. Yes, to the extent, for example, that in the last Olympics, in the 2020 Olympics and all of that, of course, the number of athletes that couldn't compete. One or two that has now been paraded as having won a medal for another country was one of them who couldn't compete because the country or the ministry was unable to do the 3 out of completion test that was required, right? So you are right. But in terms of this particular Olympics, not only did the ministry ensure that the 3 out of completion test was done, the ministry under my leadership had taken it further to make WADA to understand the fact that we are serious about the doping matters in Nigerian sports and we are determined to confront it, which is why the anti-doping bill that for the past 20-something years had been here, nothing had been done, courtesy of Mr. President in terms of his leadership and understanding. It signed off, it was sent to the National Assembly, and it's been passed into law. It's awaiting presidential assent. So this is what this has done. When the issue about the boxer, came up and all that, of course, I immediately got in touch with the CEO of the Nigerian Doping Committee that we presently have. And she talked about the fact that the last set of samples that were taken, they were waiting the results before the athletes travel. So the fact that that happened in itself is not in itself a reflection of our unseriousness with matters about doping. In fact, this ministry, in fact, the present leadership has tackled doping challenges and issues head on.
It was so bad. I don't know if you were privy to this, that WADA almost stopped Nigeria's flag being hoisted at the Olympics, and almost declaring that Nigerian athletes will have to compete in their own names and not as Nigerian athletes.
I'm not sure.
Was that bad? Were you aware?
It wasn't for this Olympics.
It was this one. For the investigations I can
tell you why. And I followed it. I mean, nobody would really have to educate me about this. That when I became minister, that same week, WADA put us on notice about our possible suspension, right? And the possibility that we would be stopped from going for the Olympics. And went on and on. I was the one that got the ministry and the sector to declare a dispute with WADA. The matter went to the Court of Arbitration of Sports. That's where the matter is now. So the possibility of our being stopped from taking part in the Olympics could not have arisen, because the matter taken by WADA to CAS hasn't been determined, hasn't been heard yet.
But are you promising that you take a closer look on this doping matter? And because of the danger that
why not? We're already doing so. I mean, we've come back after the Olympics.
Because some of these substances
my hope is that
they are being tested for are things that a lot of people will say Nigerian government or the administrators or the NOC should be aware and be able to take precautions in preparations, not to jeopardize the chances of the nation and that of the athletes.
Well, there's been a lot of effort that has continued to be made in the various camps, the local camping, the foreign camping and all that. We had our teams of doping people educating, you know, the athletes. I mean, we are not taking it, we're not just stopping at the things I've mentioned here. And we're going ahead because try as you try, you need to continue to educate, you need to continue to talk to the athletes about the dangers and about how it doesn't do the country any good.
Minister, there are those who will tell you that there is no athlete that you see in some of the big nations that lead in America and all of that. It's almost giving that those who are performing well in school sport graduated into elite sport and they come to represent their country. It is not something that happened overnight. Do we have a structure? If we don't have, it doesn't look like we have a structure anyways. It doesn't look like we respect school sport. Or it doesn't look like the pre-age, pre-elite competitions are being even taken seriously. But this should have given us a lot of lessons already. Are you learning that lesson, and what are you doing immediately to build a structure for Nigerian sports?
It's one of two things. First, I think you are making the case for me. Secondly, I think that, I mean, it's I'm learning the lesson. It's learning the very hard way. And thirdly, what I can say to you is that the truth is that we got no system. The truth is that we got no structure. The truth is that we are unable, you know, I mean, yesterday, a former Minister of Sports Development had called me and to say that, to offer his own suggestions and advice and to say that he got lucky during his time, he won 2 medals. So even when he won 2 medals, he attributes it to luck. It's because there is no system, there is no structure. Now, 2 things, I mean, funding for whatever it is. I know you can't talk too much about this funding. I mean, we got what we wanted, but for the competition, not for the preparation. Go and check. Since 2020, there is no item in the Ministry of Sports budget that reflects anything about Olympics. And that has to begin now.
And we need to be deliberate about it.
We need to be intentional.
And we have
and
a lot
deliberate.
of private entities, private organizations that we can anchor, and we can also anchor some of these competitions around so that we can develop
our sport. That has to begin. Now, there is none of the sporting federations, right, that has, let's say, an established training center well equipped for its sport. That has to happen. Sports has gone beyond the mere possession of talents. There's something they call, like, performance enhancement, performance centers. Those things are what? The fact that talent alone is not enough. There are other variables that determine the outcome of various, successes and competitions.
All right, Minister, quickly, because of our time, why do we rely heavily on foreign Nigerian, for athletes of Nigerian descent who are majorly, they just decided that they want to represent Nigeria anyways?
Because we're unable to produce ours in country. When you talk about structure, that's what those are like things that we need to confront.
So are we getting the commitment tonight?
We need
that going from here, you are taking deliberate steps to ensure that we build a structure.
Incidentally, this decision can't be taken by me alone. I mean, because those athletes come from where? They come from states, they come from local governments. Our sub-regional governments need to be involved. Right? Incidentally, sports is in the concurrent list of the Constitution. So everybody's hands needs to be on deck. The sub-nationals, the private sector, government, all of that need to be in totality. But the minister is going to lead that charge. It's going to lead the way. Because, I mean, I've told some people, we've been here before. You've mentioned in 2012. But how many years after? 4 years after that, after the 2012, a disastrous outcome just like now, a meeting was convened at the Villa. A lot of talk was done. But 4 years after, what did we manage to get? A bronze in football.
Minister, the fact remains that here, as we are right now, another Olympics is upon us. Yes, it's 4 years.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and that is in Los Angeles. They said that city is already preparing and yearning for it. Those who will compete in some other country, the Chinas of this world, the Germanys of this world, the Americans of the world are already looking at it. When are we beginning that preparation?
That preparation starts now. First, one of the things we're going to do is to be able to do a post-mortem of what has happened in order to see what lessons that we can learn. We need to be targeted. We need to be intentional. We need to be able to now do what? For the first time, this next year's budget has to contain a line item that reflects what? That beginning preparation for the Olympics. So we need to put the federations to the strictest test in terms of what they are doing in different federations to get our athletes prepared and ready.
In 2 weeks, Paralympics is here.
That's right.
How prepared are we?
Oh, well, I mean, I think what I can say is that We've done the preparations, that we can. The Paralympic team, has left. They've gone for their own camping as well.
Yeah. So the camp is open now.
Yeah, the camp is open now. Yes. The foreign camp. They have finished the local.
So you have confidence that we might do better.
They have finished the local, and they're now the foreign leg.
So you are confident that things might be better for the Paralympics?
Well, yes. After Paris, and after taking 100%, the promises and the calculations from the different federations, while expecting that, we shouldn't come back. We're not going to come back, as barren as we came back of the Olympics and all that. I'm also making my calculations, very carefully and very hopeful.
What are your expectations?
Well, my expectations are we're going to come back with medals.
But you can't say how many.
I can't say how many.
Which of the sports do you think we can do better? Or we can stand out?
The power lifting should be able to do us good.
Yeah, we've always had that.
Yeah, because we're good para athletes, para badminton, para tennis, para power lifting and all that.
Before we allow you go, Minister, Super Eagles coach, what is the update on that? We have a game in another 20-something days. AFCON qualifier.
Well, once in a while, I've made calls to the federation. Because I've continued to explain, fortunately or unfortunately, again, it's the Minister of Sports Development that is going to be asked that question. But the NFF has the immediate direct responsibility in terms of that regard, in terms of engagement, in terms of all of that.
So we don't have any, we are not in the clear.
And I've continued to ask questions, and the guarantees I have is that is going to happen sooner than later. I'm not the one who's going to appoint the coach. Definitely before the game. Yes.
Do you agree that we need to declare a state of emergency on our sports?
Why not? And I do this for obvious reasons. And you've already underscored the kind of reaction that has attended our dismal performance. Sports is what creates liveliness and happiness. Is what binds us. Is what and I think that it deserves more attention. It deserves. We need to. If that's what it's going to take to get us the results, because I know what results matter to Nigerians.
So a state of emergency needs to be declared ASAP on our sport. We need to get it right. That's one thing also that makes us proud. Look at the Nigerian names you see in Australia. We had more Nigeria on that Australian game versus Nigeria than the Australia had. But then here we are today, talking about how we performed. But Honorable Minister, I wish you the very best. It's not the easiest of job, but then at this point we say, God help you. And God bless Nigeria. Thank you so much, Nigeria.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Sheun. Thank you.
That's our show for today. Another sector that needs urgent attention that we can declare tonight. There needs to be a state of emergency on our sport for us to move forward. But that's how far we can go tonight, everyone. And thanks for watching. I'm Sheun Kimale. God bless Nigeria.